We have just finished our main podcast. We had Baroness Jane Campbell, consultant Joanna Wooten, and another consultant, Jeff Adams Spink. And they were giving us their sort of review of COVID-19 so far, the good and the bad. We thought we would take the opportunity to reflect on ours so far. We have three questions. Hardest moment so far, what we learned or discovered, and what are we going to take forward? We do appreciate COVID-19 is not finished. We are a long, long way to go. People who listen to the show will be shielding, will be very hesitant about going out. So we're not saying that. We're just pausing state of the nation so far. So Phil, do you want to kick off hardest moment so far?
Um, I think my hardest moment so far I've shared with you personally, haven't shared it with anybody else really, was although you and I have talked, and Jeff actually, we've talked about those kind of days where you're up and down and, blue days as they're called, or you called them that. I've been very surprised by how much I have been affected by this. I see myself as a pretty sorted together. I've been around
Yeah.
a long time. I've seen plenty of things. And I thought, oh, well, here we go. This will be interesting. And, I just ride my way through like I always do. And that's what my life has been about. I just got through whatever it was. I just woke up one day feeling absolutely terrible. And just so happened that you and I spoke very soon after that, I think the same day or even the next day. So my worst moment has been my feeling of depression. And I don't want to use that word in the way that I know people with mental health conditions would use it. It's not like that. But just feeling so down and abject and not wanting to do anything and wondering what was the point of doing anything anyway, that kind of thing. And I talked to you, and I have to say that was very, very helpful, because when you share something with somebody else, particularly somebody who you care about as well, because I know you've been having a tough time of it too, in a different way. But so that was it for me, really. I think I'm pretty certain it'll happen again. I think what I can look forward to is that I will feel like this again. But like so many people, I think when you've been there and you've kind of come up the next day and felt okay again, then you kind of think, well, maybe it'll be all right.
Are you shielding or are you staying in because you have to? What's your?
It's a difficult one. I have type 2 diabetes. I've got various health issues. I've not received an official thing saying that I'm shielding, but I am over 70. So I am still apparently in this wonderful, vulnerable group. Personally, I'm taking it seriously. I'm trying to avoid unnecessary, going meeting and stuff like that. We've relaxed it a bit with our family, which has been brilliant. So I have seen a bit more of my family, my kids, my grandchildren, but not close up, because that's still not and they're being very good about it too. Actually, they tend to see me, and to a lesser degree Sue, as they need to be a bit careful.
I mean, although you said you did share it with me and not widely, fortunately at the time I just pressed record, so I recorded you telling me, and I've been sharing it about with people. So this is how Phil's getting
I
on.
wonder why it gone viral.
Yeah,
Couldn't work it out.
we've had a whip round. You got a big balloon coming. Um,
Yeah.
no, there's a backstory to this, and there's a bit of learning. And I don't know if I told you this, but you had been pressing my buttons, or I'd been pressing yours. There was some rattling around, and you and I, we do squabble and we do argue, and that's a natural part of it. But there was something more, and it was really, it's like, oh, he's driving me nuts. Why is he being like this? And then I remember speaking to him. We were meant to be talking about some work,
Yeah.
and I remember saying to you, which is not something I normally do, how are you really though? And then boom, we started talking about it. The learning for me was like, okay, Simon, rather than get impatient like you always do, just check. And I was touched that you shared it with me. It was, I don't think I gave any solutions. I just
No,
listened.
but I think that's where I think we make mistakes. I don't think a lot of times when people feel the way they do, and you do it too, they don't want you to give them advice, or not necessarily. They just want somebody to listen and offload to, really, which is what I did with you. I mean, I've been around long enough to know what works and what doesn't work for me. But what I do know is that I am the sort of person that has to offload stuff. It's true for everything. When if somebody upsets me, I have to tell them. I can't sit around for 2 weeks brooding on it. I am that kind of person. So in my family, if one of the kids misbehaved or did something that I didn't like, I would immediately be on it. I wouldn't wait until the right moment. So what you gave me, and I think one of the great things that human beings can do to other people, if we learn anything from this bloody virus, it is that we do need other people to share things with, and not necessarily to get advice from, but to just be able to share how you're feeling. I mean, what could be nicer than that?
Yeah, and the weird bit is that if you're on the listening end, you suddenly think, oh, one, that you're in a position of trust, and two, that's a compliment for someone to be able to share it with you, I think. So, and I'm
Yeah.
glad you're kind of a bit, yeah, the blue days, absolutely. My fear for me, my blue days have been more than one day sometimes. They've gone into 2 or 2.5 days, and you're like, oh, hell.
I think that's where I know you and I, when I say this, you kind of pick it up and say, I'm not sure. But for me, I think I do have someone here, and most of the time you're not with someone. So I think there's a difference structurally there. And Sue and I talk all the time about all sorts of things. Of course we do. I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because talking to you about how I was feeling was different from talking to Sue. And in some ways, it was better doing it with you, because in some ways it was a worky type thing. I'm not, sometimes when you and I were running our business together, and we had terrible times at times, we had some fantastically wonderful times as well. But taking home work when the day was bad didn't help. But it helped if I did it with you, because you were in the room with it. You understood it. You felt the same pressure I felt. So I think sometimes being able to empathize with somebody else, because you are in a similar position to them, you're not in the same position and you don't know what they're feeling, but you can at least appreciate the difficulties that may be triggering whatever it is they're feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and also we finished that conversation, and we have revisited it, but I didn't keep texting you every half an hour for the rest of the evening going, how are you now? How are you now?
No, no.
That was its.
Since, to be fair.
Well, I've been trying to avoid you. It's kind of, bloody hell,
No, but
we're all
come on.
struggling.
What have you?
Yes,
You had?
mine aren't quite as deep and profound, I don't think. Well, the first one was coming back in from Bristol. I'd been working. This was 16th, 17th of March. Everything was closing down, but the government hadn't officially done it. The Chancellor came on Radio 4 and announced this £330 billion package for everything, because we knew the world was going to stop and it had to be funded. And I found myself getting teary. And I reflect back and I realized that was the moment for me. I was like, oh my goodness me, this is huge. I've never heard a politician say anything like this. This is crisis. This is major. This is significant. This is going to have an impact on all of us for a long time. And it just brought it home to me. And that made me feel very sad. I'd whiz forward almost to last night and watching a Newsnight report on the care homes. You and I have spoken about this.
Dreadful.
And I've moved from, hang on, this is a fast moving, difficult situation. We've got to react, to a slightly more, hang on, there's some really bad mistakes, I think, that have happened. And this, I need to know the reasons and why we had so many empty beds in all of these brand new hospitals. And yet we've got people in care homes who are dying, a lot of them. And hearing the people from the care homes talk about that, one, it made me want to go and move into a care home because they were the nicest people in the world and they would look after me. But the
Yeah.
flip side was this horrific situation that they were in. And I also imagine that's just one entity. I imagine there's lots of other institutions, care homes. This is for older people, not the homes where disabled people might be in. So it's this unraveling of all the things that people have been through. And I know lots of people who are in lovely bubbles who have said this has been an amazing time. The world slowed down. I've got to do all my jobs. I'm getting a lovely suntan. And I know that's true for some, but it's for all those others that you think, oh, my life.
I watched the same program, and there was a moment when You know what? Each day they trot out how many people have died, and they add it to the total, and we all kind of. And initially there were pictures of these people, and then there were lots of pictures of these people, and they kept saying things like, behind each picture there is a real person. Last night, when those care staff were talking about the residents that had died, I was really moved by that. I thought, we had our own Colonel Tom, we had Millie, who was they spoke with huge affection about these people. And then the woman who said, all of these people played a major role in our lives. One was Winston Churchill's secretary. You know, we forget that, don't we? That older people have made a massive contribution, have ended up very frail, needing lots of care. And then what we do as a society is say, oh, well done, off you go. You know, I was very moved by that. I was also, like you, horrified by the death count, and just
There was a curious bit. One of the first statistics they put up, this is not what they put up, but I'm doing it for the purposes of illustration. They'd say, in that day in the country, 1,000 people died. 10 people in the care home died. And they kept doing it. And every number, it was 1%. So when we get to, I don't know, 50,000, I've got to do my maths now. I think it was like 50.
people.
But essentially, to know that where the care home setup that they ran, 1% of all the people that died were in their care homes for the nation.
And that, of course, was just one company running one
Exactly.
set of care homes. It's going on everywhere. Some were worse than others. Some were better than others. No, it was right. Well, okay.
Discovered. What have you discovered or learnt?
I've discovered that I've always been a people person. I've always loved being around people. I've always enjoyed other people's company. I really have, and I still will. But I'm okay on my own. I don't. I've really. There have been times where I've really enjoyed this, being able to concentrate, not have lots of distractions. That's been good, actually.
One of mine's very similar. I do like being on my own. I'm okay mostly. I have the double whammy on that. One, I've realised I get a lot of energy from people. I hadn't realised this. Jen, who I used to see, she'd say we said we're going out for the evening, and she would be, oh, it's going to be exhausting. She said, you suddenly liven up, and that's you'll come home from being out full of energy, and she's just exhausted. So I've missed the energy I get from other people being with them. But there's also a niceness that has happened yesterday. No, yesterday, this weekend, I went for a long scoot, and I was trying to find this path, and I ended up in a dead end or a cul-de-sac, and there were some people who normally would be a little bit scary, but they were all laying and sunbathing, just hanging out. And I had headphones on, and they said, "You all right?" And I took them out, and I was like, "Yeah." And they said, "Are you looking for the path? Well, what you need to do is go back over that way. There's a zebra crossing, cross that." And they said, "Problem is, there's a couple of steps, so you're gonna have to do some off-roading, but you could probably do it." And I just thought, "You're lovely, aren't you, lovely people?" And I like this helpfulness that everyone's got.
Yeah, yeah. There's been a period, hasn't there? Maybe we're passing through that now, but there has been a period, even in my limited contact with people, watching the TV, listening to the radio, listening to podcasts, people talking. There has clearly been a spirit of we need to pull together and be helpful to each other. And that's been great. I hope we don't lose that.
I agree. I've also learned there are lots of alternatives to loo paper.
Really? Can you share a few?
Fortunately, I didn't have to, but I got more serviettes than you can imagine. And
Remind me of my mum in the
I
nice
went,
possible way. She used to go in the pound shop and always go for the specials. When she died and we opened one of her cupboards, about 400 rolls of toy, she'd collected them over the years. She'd have been great in this crisis.
uh, yeah, there's ways and means, but fortunately, I was lucky. Okay, what are you going to take forward? What are you going to keep?
I'm going to keep this. I love this way of talking to each other. I think the phone is dead. The fact that we can do this, I really have enjoyed Zooming and whatevering. Um, the real value, though, the serious point about it is that not having to drive an hour and a half for a meeting that takes an hour. I know that will be one that everybody agrees with. If we use this intelligently, this is going to save so much grief, stress, petrol, whatever. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to take the other thing I'm going to take is how much I love the people that I'm not seeing, my family, my children, my grandchildren. So this has taught me the value, if I needed teaching it, just how important my family are to me. So yes, I take that forward. Try and remember what it felt like when I couldn't be with them is a good thing to remember.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do get your general point about the video and the calls, and there's a pleasure. I suppose because I have actually done some work and training and delivery, and it just wipes me out. So I've had a mixed feeling about them. I feel I should stretch my diary out. I'm going to take that forward. There's been a couple of days during this lockdown where I've had one training session in the morning and maybe a call in the afternoon. That's a beautiful day. That's really lovely. A bit of proper work that gets me thinking and nervous or whatever, and then just a nice conversation, not squeezing in 17 things, just stretching that out. I've really liked. So carry on. I like doing what I did before, but just do a bit less of it, less frequently. And I feel I may have to get a house with a garden because
Yeah,
driven me to distraction. The amount of people who are brown, they're hanging out in the gardens, they're just having the time of their lives, and I'm stuck in my greenhouse.
I'm one of them. Well, there are advantages to your situation, of course there are, but there is definitely those people, and that's one of my reflections, that when I sit in my garden and with my dog and my partner Sue and look around me, I then famously remember Betty in the block of flats, and
Professional.
In
Is that Betty?
Yeah, just giving me a call.
Where are you, Phil?
My trainer thought, no, Betty in Tower Hamlets, block of flats.
You've changed her name. It was Flossie. It was Aunt Flossie.
She had a daughter, Betty, who inherited the flat.
And she's your don't forget people person.
In our podcast earlier, we talked about the 2.5 million people who are shielding still. That hasn't changed. They're still having to have those restrictions. And I don't think we should forget that. And I don't think we should forget people who, your flat is not, you haven't got a garden, but your flat's lovely. And there are people in one room, aren't there, who with 3 kids and stuff. It's just a joke.
The other day, I shuffled from my bedroom to the bathroom, and I thought, I wonder if this is how Julian Assange lived his life.
Yeah.
As in the Ecuadorian.
Yeah.
Because I've just been rattling around these 4 walls for 3 months, 2 months.
Did he not sire a child while he was? Didn't that happen?
I just
right. It's just because
bonus content, everybody. I thought I could slip in a gag, but no, we've gone somewhere else. Did he?
I believe he did. I think did he not have a child while he was in that? He was in for a long time, wasn't he?
You
better look this up. We'll put it in the show notes.
6 years or something. I remember he was there for a long time. You have reminded me of something that there has been no affection. I haven't had any affection and I don't even have a pet. So, it's not like I could cuddle my cat or something. It's,
you need
I really have missed that.
You need a budgie. Because you can try to talk. They need to be looked after. They'll pick your teeth. When I was young, my mother had budgies. We used to love budgies. And if you train them, you could hold it on your finger, this little budgie, and you could get it to pick your teeth. There you are. The perfect pet.
That's how coronavirus 18 started, I believe. Bloody hell.
Yes, avian flu. Yeah. You've not lived your